Yeah. So, jackets. Wow. Um, I had the chance to uh, buy some jackets in my lifetime. And, jackets, first, I'm going to give a story of some perspective. And he who has ears, let him hear. I'm going to tell a story today. It's up to you to um, decipher through some of the language. But from a jacket perspective, when I was younger, I was always provided for. Thank God, my parents provided for me and made sure I had what I needed. It wasn't necessarily the things that I wanted. I wanted some of the name brands, and usually, when I was growing up, we didn't. My parents didn't. My mom specifically didn't buy name brand for us. Uh, so we had the ones that were good quality but look alike. Wasn't It didn't have the big names. But anyway, later I got a chance to finally go to the leather store, and I was able to, with my money, buy a jacket, a leather jacket, and that jacket, I had that. I took care of it. It went through a lot with me. It was similar to, like I mentioned, cologne. It became kind of a part of me and my personality through life experiences, and it was something of I would consider kind of high value for an individual value. So someone values their jacket. Now I had other jackets too, but this particular one, the leather jacket, a black leather jacket, it was something that gave me some. Uh, it was something that was I put on as part of my gear in the wintertime, and uh, kind of like sometime in the fall if it was cold enough, and usually stop wearing it during the spring and summer months because I'm in the area where we have seasons. So I would usually have it in the closet, and then I'd break it out and um, for the winter time sometimes use the leather cleaner and get it all cleaned up and make sure it's good to go and shiny if possible, and kind of sport that throughout the time. Not the only jacket I wore. If I had to go to work, I wore some other type of jackets, and if I depending on the occasion, but I had that jacket. So I wanted to give you a story about what happened with that jacket because I no longer have it, and it's kind of ironic. I just built it up like it was a souvenir piece, and it would have been if not for uh, one specific night that I was attending a company event. We had a company get together, and at the company I was at that time, it was about an hour and a half from where I was living, so I had to take the locomotive to and from. And that night, we went out. We, is me, myself, and my coworkers. We went out to join this company event, and it was full of conversation and talking, and it was professional in nature. So I was out with coworkers, so things couldn't go off kilt too much. It was a work oriented event, so that was great. Um, and I was hanging out, and I was having some of the Captain spicy sodas and stuff, and I was feeling good with that, because that was my kind of normal loosen up thing. And then at some point, there was another one of my coworkers came to me and wanted to challenge. He wanted to compete to see how much of the huckleberry gingerberry we could take down. And I was like, wow, yeah, I'm good with the Captain's spicy soda, but I can go for some huckleberry ginger. And so we went up to the place where they were giving those out, and we started with one, and they were big, and I had one, and he had one, and I had another, and he had another, and all was good with the world. It was done. We was both all congratulating each other, like, wow, you did it. Huckleberry ginger done, yes. Um, and the event carried on. So eventually the event started coming to a close. And, I had already planned out the day ahead of time, from the morning, knowing that, hey, the spirit may be high and light, might be a good spirit on the way back home. So let me just let me take the locomotive in, and I'll take the locomotive back. And if I need to, call for some taxi service and get back home. Well, I was walking back with my jacket. The key is the jacket was there with me that day. This is the last day I had the jacket. I was walking back to the locomotive and the station where the locomotive runs out of, and there were people there. It was in the later hours of the evening. And I looked up at the times, and the locomotive was on the way, and it would be there soon. So I'm thinking, okay, this is no problem. It's about an hour ride on the locomotive. Usually when it's moving at a good pace, it gets me there, in 50 minutes, 45 minutes. But considering the time of the day, the locomotive was going to be about an hour and 10 minutes, right? So I'm already, the spirits are moving around and feeling good, and I get on and sit in the locomotive. Finally, it shows up. I go get my. I had a authorization to get on, so I get on to the locomotive, and I find a passenger location that I can sit down, and I'm waiting as the locomotive starts to proceed toward the destination. And for what would be my destination area where I can exit, I started feeling like a little clickety clackety going on inside of my internal, like the throat area. It was like a little click, and then a little clack, and then a little tick, tick, tick. And, I'm really not one to consume and then later on have that come back out of me, if you know what I mean. So at least come back out of the place it entered in from. Usually I consume and it exits from the exit area. Well, that day when I started getting the clickety clackety feeling and the throat was a little like, I was sitting there. I had my jacket. I had my cellular phone at the time. I had a cap, a baseball cap that I was wearing too. I had that in my hand. And I looked around the locomotive and I was thinking, wow, there may not be any place on this locomotive for me to quickly get to relieve any of the clickety clackety feeling I had in my throat, which was coming from my stomach, which was probably based on the finger foods we had also consumed at the event. So at that point, I started little perspiration started coming down the side of my face and my head, and I started looking around thinking the clickety clackety was getting even more, it was going faster, and I was looking up at the locomotive engineers, what they're doing, and what walking back and forth, and we were slowing down, and it wasn't in the hour time. We started delaying, and oh man, that clickety clackety got to the point where it went from a clickety clackety to a Montezuma revenge, then turned into me providing to the locomotive in the passenger seat on my jacket and all over me all of the Captain Spicy Soda and the Huckleberry Ginger and some of those finger foods. I provided that as a free gift to myself and any surrounding passengers next to me on the train. In fact, when the first time I delivered the gift, a few passengers were so excited they got up and ran down to the other end of the locomotive, and then the locomotive engineer came by and just gave me a look, and I don't think he was happy with the gift I left. So I guess the clickety clackety told me, hey, maybe it's time to leave another gift, and that was gift number 2. And I of course I could have tried to get up and give the gift to the passengers restroom area, but I just didn't see one. So it was round 2, deliver the packages right there, and then another round. And by that time, the cellular phone had been overwhelmed with gifts. My baseball cap was overwhelmed with gifts, and so was my leather jacket. I mean, to a point where it was like, oh boy. So I got off the locomotive. I got off the locomotive and called for service, taxi service. The taxi service, thankfully, kindly took me to my destination. There was another individual in the taxi service as a passenger, and when I entered the taxi service, they for some reason they had a frightening look on their face. I guess people don't really like when you're carrying around gifts that you give yourself after company events and the different types of things you consumed. So eventually I got dropped off. I came in my home, and I took off that jacket and my clothing and put it in the downstairs bathroom. I had it upstairs at that time, and left it until the next day. The next day I came down. There was no magic. There was no, it was the gift that kept on giving. Those clothing and jacket was still in that bathroom. So no, there was no magical gift fairy that came to help clean up what would have been considered, a very beneficial, fruitful, finger foodful event. And I looked at the jacket, and I decided that there's really it just was not in a state that I could leave it to really hold on to it any longer. It was really like it was given too many gifts, and so I decided that the compost or the bin of getting rid of things in the trash bin in the local complex was the best area for me to carry that jacket to. And I as I was walking, I was remembering all of the nostalgic events I had over the years with that jacket, and I decided that I guess it's a new world, it's a new time, and it's time to move on. And I took that jacket with all the gifts it had on it, and the gifts had such a smell and scent to it. It was something that wow, you can't buy that in a Walmart inside of a an air freshener. It just doesn't come like that. Those types of gifts don't get there like that. I picked that jacket up, I threw it in the bin, and turned around and walked back. And it was the last gift I gave with that jacket. and I'm thankful. And it was all worth it.